This is my 1 million point run in week 1 of the Gauntlet. We are officially 8 minutes away from the end of the first week of the Gauntlet in Diablo 4. Obviously, it's a weekly reset, and yeah, in 8 minutes we'll see how the the first week goes. Who won in each class and difficulty and or like hardcore or softcore. But here is my rogue run. I managed to just barely last night get past the 1 million mark, which got me currently a 7th spot on the leaderboard. And my build is different than what I've seen most other builds. Obviously, a lot of profiles are set to private, so you can't really see what other players are doing. But yeah, at the beginning of this run here, I skipped the first boss just to use my mobility to get to the second boss, because the artillery shrine that it gives is just too good. But yeah, I'm using Death Trap as my ultimate, which has a shorter cooldown than the Shadow Clone that most players are using. And I'm using Penetrating Shot, which is also different than most people. Most people have been using Barrage after the buff, and just in general, it seems better to use Barrage, because the problem is to kill all these bosses, and Barrage has sort of like a shotgun effect. When you stand close to a boss, it just dies pretty fast. But my gear, when I first started the Gauntlet, was basically optimized for pen shot, and I couldn't bother grinding for new gear, and so I just went with it. What's the best score I can do with my build? That's kind of been my approach. And I think the first 3 days, I was probably one of the few people who actually had a preparation build here. So whenever I use my ultimate, it resets all of my other cooldowns. It seemed like most people went into the Gauntlet with a combo point rogue build. And it turns out, I think through pure luck, that my build was kind of optimized for this, without really knowing the content, what the content was going to be. But then when people slowly but surely figured out what the weaknesses are of the rogue, and what gaps need to be filled, people started catching on. And also with the exploits, I, as you can see in this run, use 0 exploits. You can grab a shrine in the open world or anywhere else and bring that effect into the Gauntlet, so it gives you an advantage at the start. You can probably save 20 seconds there. And I think there's another exploit where you can somehow gather all the monsters, and you reset the run, but the monsters are still there somehow. And yeah, there's been a couple exploits found, which is not ideal. But here you see probably the highlight of the run here. I pull this boss. Shout out to Rob, he's the one who shared this. I'm sure a lot of people have been doing this, but I started doing it once he shared it, and it's probably one of the most effective and efficient ways of using this glory shrine, which is a 2.5 point multiplier, and the bosses lined up perfectly here for me. And every 20,000 points that I get spawns more elites. So you see here, there's all those 3 bosses spawned an elite pack each. So and they just all the points that I'm getting from the elites also spawn more monsters. So it's just like a chain reaction right there in the same spot, which is very convenient. It gives me a boatload of points. And that moment right there is when I like Penetrating Shot, the long range kind of sniping an enemy real fast. So it comes in handy sometimes to have Penetrating Shot. But yeah, then now we have, whenever I have 3 shrines, that's when I try to make the long round throughout the map. But in general, the routing of this is quite a headache, because it's funny, because I've never been into like playing speedruns, but I've throughout the last 10-15 years watched and consumed a lot of speedruns. I mean, of other games. I think it's a fascinating thing where people spend years of their life optimizing a route in like a game from the 90s, like Zelda Ocarina of Time or whatever it might be. And this is the first time where I've actually felt like I'm a speedrunner myself, where the process of running the same dungeon over and over for 8 minutes trying to, obviously that's the thing, is like one of my earlier routes, I feel like I had a perfect run of that route, but the score just didn't stand, you know, throughout the week, because optimizations were found and the routes improved. So then, even though I executed that initial route perfectly, it didn't really matter, because the route itself was not that good. So it's an interesting, like the whole speedrunning thing, I totally understand, especially like Super Mario 64, where some people have been running a specific route for years to try to get a good time, and then a new trick gets discovered, like a new glitch, and yeah, it just kind of invalidates all of their attempts. I struggle clicking these chests and keys, as you might see. It's one of the advantages I've seen of being on console. You just just click a button and it will open those chests and pick those keys for you. But the overall doesn't. Maybe a second or two throughout the run. So here we got the end of my second progression shrine, the Glory. I managed to get quite a good score on both my progression shrines, which this mode, at least this first week, it's 90% about how well your progression shrines go, at least for Rogue, and I think some other classes too. Unless you manage to truly optimize the amount of monsters and bosses you kill during that progression shrine, your score will not be close to good. It's a difference maker every time. Like I've run the same route probably 50 times, and even though other routes or other times than this one you're seeing, I feel like I've been executing it better. The movement, not getting stuck, clicking all the chests perfectly, it's like smooth. It doesn't matter when if something goes wrong with luring the bosses, or the elites don't spawn in the right way, you mess something up during the progression shrine itself, yeah, that's gonna kill your run every time. So it is a bit it's tough. It is definitely tough. But yeah, I think obviously the community in general, the people that don't play Diablo, the people that just like look through a window, have not really enjoyed the Gauntlet at all. And I think there's many ways it could be more fun. I think if it was more like a matchmaking system, maybe like you get a map and you have 2 minutes to figure out your route, and then you compete against like 8 other players to run that once, and you get like an MMR if you are in the top 4, or sort of like Battlegrounds in Hearthstone, something like that. I think the Gauntlet would benefit from, because then it's more like it's more accessible even for people who just play it maybe once, just jump in for a quick Gauntlet run, versus this is like has been a complete grind for everyone at the top of the leaderboard. But yeah, there you go, barely made it past the 1 million mark. 23 bosses killed. And yeah, right now I'm at 6th spot. I mean, I will be very impressed if this #1 guy didn't use any exploits in terms of shrines or luring monsters. I can't view his profile, I can't see what his build is. Here are my items real quick for those of you who are curious. Got the shrine buff duration, it's key on my boots, and some dash for shorter cooldowns. Got some damage, and damage while standing still for those boss fights. Dash drops smoke grenades to reduce the cooldown. More shrine buff duration. Obviously Shaco and Starless Skies, 2 uber uniques right there. Penetrating shot aspect and attack speed. There you have it.